A couple of weeks ago, I made a video talking about how the Pokemon Company and Game Freak have been weirdly silent, not really announcing anything, and overall just keeping to themselves after they recently announced Pokemon Legends Z through A, and how that this silence is overall a good show of faith that they actually are taking the time to really push these games to their limits, and I think really showed that they actually care about making the games that they're making. Like I said, I'm very skeptical about what Pokemon Company is making next, but overall it had me still very excited because it showed that they actually were taking the time. I will say, my fault, this was my fault in that video, a lot of y'all let me know. I accidentally said that the game was coming out early 2025, which nothing in the trailers really specify that, and that's my bad. It mostly just stems from me kind of just being super used to Game Freak really loving them holiday sales. And so to me, when they said, oh, 2025, January 1st, baby. But all that to the side, obviously we're here for something a lot bigger. I mean, we all knew that it was going to be probably a little bit before Game Freak was actually going to talk about this game. But regarding recent events, it might be just a little while longer. If you've been out of the loop and somehow stumbled upon this video, Game Freak had a huge internal leak where a hacker got access to one of their GitHub pages and were able to get access to like employee informations regarding like emails, bunch of personal information, but also basically every single game build and builds prior to it, like beta and alpha builds, were also included. And the ones that I've seen, like the earliest one, I saw we had some Gen 2 stuff in there, all the way up to Generation 10. Yeah. The game that probably won't be announced for another 2 to 3 years. This leak has kind of drummed up a bunch of talk in the community, and obviously I wanted to put my piece out there, and I've obviously a little late to the party. At the time of recording this video, they recently just got beta builds of Scarlet and Violet. Now, I'm not going to show too many photos. Obviously, I want my video and my channel to be intact by the end of this upload. So I'm going to do my best to kind of explain brief things, but this video is just going to be kind of just a follow-up update and just something that I wanted to talk about real quick. Now, this leak was huge. Not even just games information was leaked, like whole anime arcs for the shows, stuff from the trading card game. Like, there were renders of entire maps made for background art for some of the cards. Not even just like card prints. No, we got the background map render of one of the like Fusion Tower cards. And even a part of this leak, there are some transcripts from some of their like emails, like some meetings in there too. And that is actually how we got some of our first like unreleased leaks for the games that were coming out. So why, I think, if you've been hearing about this and you're like, why haven't we seen any of the like Legends Z through A stuff? Gen 10, if it's in there, why won't he show us? Well, because this man, he respects the company and their decisions, and he doesn't want to ruin that for them. Even though he'll sell your personal information on the internet for everyone to have. We love you, Game Freak. They're the only leaks we've gotten through Z through A regarding the actual, like, stuff in the files was a transcript from some of the developers talking with some of the creators of the anime and kind of just noticing some similarities about what they want to do for the future and kind of giving them some things that they can work with, like, oh, hey, I guess spoilers for Z through A. Like, oh, we've got Mega Zygarde here. We can let you use that. And we also have Mega Zeraora if you want to use that as well. It is honestly really, really interesting to see the first leaks from this game are coming from anime transcripts and not like actual images and other files. Like, if you've been around for a while, you probably remember when Scarlet and Violet was releasing, a bunch of images went online of like Farigiraf, the flower, glib and more, I don't remember. But that's so far the most we have about Legends Z through A. Like, there's not much that was really talked about. The leakers only said that, like, Stunfisk is in the game. What? Thanks, man. And that the performance problems from Scarlet and Violet are present, But the game is basically finished from what he has said. Everything is kind of taken with a grain of salt, but a lot of the things that have come out, like images, like you've been following online, all of those are basically real. Even the mistranslated yokai influence stories, if you've seen those. So there is a lot to this leak, even extending to stuff that we haven't even heard of. There is this other game that was kind of shown, but we're not really sure exactly what it is. Like, we have full footage of this, like, build of a game that could be still in development, canceled, reworked, we don't know. It's basically a Pokemon riding game where you ride on top of Pokemon and kind of just use their abilities to traverse through the world. Kind of what Legends Arceus was doing, but that's the whole gimmick of the game. I'll throw one image up and maybe a video for this because we're a little deep into the video. Game Freak's bots aren't gonna watch this far. Final moments before my untimely disaster. Like, there was even whole lore pages talking about how Arceus created Dialga and Palkia, and they gave birth to the Lake Trio. The Lake Trio kind of made this tree. Something happened, and the Lake Trio asked Dialga and Palkia to make Rayquaza, Groudon, and Kyogre, and it spawned into this basically huge Bible for Pokemon, which is insane. Never did I imagine that in this leak, like, I thought when it was announced we were gonna get, like some beta builds for some game, maybe some early Pokemon designs. But no, we got the entire lore drop of how Arceus and all the legendaries were basically created. Not all of them. It definitely seems that these files and, well, documents are kind of from Generation 4, when they were doing Heart Gold and Soul Silver and trying to make a huge Arceus event. And they had this giant, like, triangle symbol with a bunch of circles around it. That is literally in this document. I'll put that image up. I don't think there's much they can do. I hope. God, I'm treading on fucking thin ice, man. But even still, there's been a lot of concerns, I think, what's going beyond this leak, and a lot of people worried that Game Freak is going to change a lot of their future plans because of this. And that's what I mostly wanted to kind of talk about today, because Game Freak wasn't the only one that has been leaked recently. The most recently before this, that was like as big as this, was the Insomniac leak. So if you don't know who Insomniac is, they're the developers for the most recent Spider-Man games for the PlayStation. They've also made the Ratchet and Clank games, and they made Sunset Overdrive as well. And they also have an upcoming game as well, the Wolverine, which I'm very excited for. I'm a very big fan of Wolverine, and to actually see him get a full solo game like this is really exciting for me. And boy, oh boy, I didn't think we'd get to see footage of that early. So unfortunately for Insomniac, this leak was devastating for them. Not only did a bunch of internal files and personal information get leaked, which is just horrible. It's horrible that these people will go after that because they can sell them in the dark web for easy money. But entire early PC builds were leaked onto the internet. They fully dropped their newest game release that's coming out early as it can be for everyone to see, with storyboard cutscenes here and there, like a bunch of really like, it seemed like it was still really into development and it had a long time to go. And all in all, sure, it was really neat to see how the game is coming, but this stuff doesn't really need to be seen until after the game releases. The Wolverine was the biggest hitter here. There was obviously a few other things which we'll get into, but the Wolverine was basically just fully dropped onto the internet. Entire beta builds, even like alpha builds of the games, were just completely driven online, with people kind of just jumping to conclusions thinking this is the game. And it was just a mess of a time, and so I can't imagine what's going on behind their scenes, especially since we already kind of know what's going on. Because in that leak, there was a roadmap for Marvel Spider-Man 2, which showed that they were planning on having a Carnage DLC, a bunch of other Spider-Man related stuff, I think tying into the most recent Spider-Verse film. But recently, they just announced Spider-Man 2 is coming to PC, and also said that there's no extra planned content for the game coming. So whatever we saw got completely scrapped. And was it because of the leak? I don't know, I don't work there. I think a lot of things will come out as time goes on, and we'll really see kind of what happened past the Insomniac leak. There were a few other things that were leaked in there, but if you want to find those out, you can look them up. A lot of that work that was used on Spider-Man 2 as DLC will probably just be moved into the third game, which was actually shown in the leak, but it was basically just Spider-Man 2 with test stuff. Like, it was literally just, they took the Spider-Man 2 build and they started to work. Like, that's how much was in this leak. And so bringing it back to Pokemon, there's been a lot of people worried about, like, if they show a lot more new stuff, like, is a lot of that gonna get canceled? Is none of that gonna be seen? If, like, Legend Z through A gets shown, or even Gen 10, will that be reworked or canceled? Yes and no. I don't think Z through A, especially if it's coming next year, and rumors and even like some things from the leak saying May, it just seems pointless on the Pokemon Company, especially if they're kind of releasing everything at once like they do every year. They release the games, they have the anime stuff, they have trading cards, like, and merchandise. They have to have all of that ready to go for the game's release. And so I imagine a lot of that was being worked on when all this happened, especially if the leaker says that the game was basically finished, minus some translations. There's too much development time going into it, a lot of money, especially coming from the highest grossing entertainment company. Like, it just seems pointless. You already have made the game. You've already basically have everything else set, ready to go. Just release it. But Gen 10, that is the main thing that I think, if that does get shown build-wise, anything, none of that's seeing the light of day. None of it. A lot of that is probably super early on, maybe just very basic gameplay ideas. But basically, the game itself, I think, if it did get shown, if any build is in there and is running and we get footage of it, we're not seeing that game. Knowing how they love their surprise factor in a lot of things, Z through A is just too close to release for them to either rework elements or stuff like that. It's just pointless to not release it. But Gen 10, if that got shown, which could release in the next 3 or even 4 years, that will definitely get reworked to all hell. And going off of the Insomniac League, I mean, obviously, they haven't really shown anything new for Wolverine or anything. Like, the entire script leaked. It was a madhouse. And so I imagine that they're probably reworking that game's story elements. From things we heard about Gen 10 being it's set in Greece, we might even have the actual names for the games. I'm not going to really say because they could be very wrong. But the fact that we have an idea for this game so early on, I think is enough. I think it's enough. I hope Gen 10 doesn't really get shown. Even in my chaotic mind, I still want to see it, but I obviously know that if I see it, that won't be Gen 10. That will not be Gen 10. All of that will most likely be reworked and redeveloped into something totally different, so they get that element of surprise back. This is a very weird time. I'm a person that loves looking at these leaks. I'm very fascinated with how games go through development and how they end up. Like, it's super interesting to me to really see the processes of each thing, because to me, when I was younger, games were like magic. They were the closest thing to human magic as possible. Like, you could literally make and do whatever you wanted with some of this stuff. And so, of course, there are some lights beyond this, but this is definitely something that I think Game Freak and the Pokemon Company really did not want to happen. And coming from this, I feel like it'll be a little bit till we really hear from them and really what they have planned next, especially if a lot of those spin-offs or anything that got somewhat leaked are somewhat true. I think the Pokemon Company might have a huge, giant restructure, but who knows? This is all just kind of speculation and just kind of my knowledge on what I've seen throughout the community. And I just wanted to share it because I think people are really, really worried about Z through A getting, like, canceled or delayed. It could get a delay, but I think being canceled is just way too much. It's way too much for them, and it would just be a huge waste of money, especially when there's a new hardware coming out. Like, you'd be an idiot not to jump on that. I don't know. I kind of wanted to make this shorter video to just kind of just update everybody and just overall just clarify some things from my last video, but this has just been unexpected. If you want to look into a lot of these Like a lot of the beta builds, like X and Y has a whole early build you can look at. But don't go downloading anything. Do not go download anything. This is so I don't get sued. There's plenty of accounts that are posting it. I mean, if you haven't noticed, when Nintendo announced that playtest build, images for that have been flying across the internet, baby. They shot themselves in the foot for that one. But I hope this maybe just cleared up some worries about the future of it, but also kind of keep an ear out for what's going on. But it's obvious that they really need to get Z through A, some footage out there. But from what the leaker has said and the build that he's played, it seems like that they are now using these like next few months and even this past year to really iron out a lot of the problems that were addressed in past games, and it just makes me somewhat excited. It gives me a little dance in the morning, I don't know. Like I said, sorry again for the smaller video this week. I just got back from a little small vacation where I went to go see a concert, and I went to see Porter Robinson. I'll pull up a clip for that real quick. But anyways, keep your eyes and ears out for the next Nintendo Direct, because I hear the Pokemon Company's going to have a special announcement. I heard that they might come up on screen. They're going to be like, hello everybody, we have something to show you. And then it's going to cut. And it's going to be a man in a chair.